some of the common goals you might set for yourself. For me, goals tend to fall into one of three different categories. The first reason that I might come into practice is to work on nailing a trick I've never been able to get before. And in order to do that, to keep me on track with that, I have this book. And I highly recommend you create your own book or create your own list. You see, this book is filled with different tricks or moves that I would like to be able to say, eventually one day, I've done. I have this divided into three major sections: clubs, rings, and balls. And within each of those sections, I have it subdivided into different moves I'd like to be able to do with 3 of those props, 4, 5, or even the ever-elusive, for me anyway, 6+ props. So, if I'm coming in, for example, to work on nailing a trick, then what I will do is I will spend roughly 10 minutes working on any one trick in here that I've never gotten before. Sometimes I can get it within 3 to 5 minutes, and then I'll just move on to another one in this book. Sometimes, after 10 minutes, I'm really not feeling it at all. It doesn't seem like it's even close, in which case I'll stop working on that particular move, and I'll pick another one from the book and try it for another 10 minutes. I do this, of course, until practice time is over for me. Sometimes I can move through practicing 6 or 7 different tricks if I have enough time, and maybe on occasion of those 6 or 7 different moves that I've tried, I'll nail 3 of them, or maybe I'll nail none of them. Occasionally, if after 10 minutes of trying to nail a particular trick, if I feel I'm getting closer and that something about that trick is starting to kind of click with me, then what I might do is actually continue working on that for as much as another 10 or 15 more minutes. And sadly, there are those times when I've decided that I'm going to work on a particular move for 30 or 40 minutes, only to be frustrated when, at the end of, say, nearly an hour's worth of practice, I've not gotten it. This is not something I recommend you do. Another follow-up question, sir. Thank you. Chris, when you talk about practicing a trick, is there any particular way that you try to practice that trick so that you can count it as being nailed? Yes. Yes, in fact, there is. Only for my own personal sake, my own little private rule, although nobody else needs to say this is important to them. I try to say that I've nailed a trick if I have successfully qualified that trick on both sides. So for example, let's say that I'm working on a 5-ball, 3-up 360. I want to be able to say that I can do a standard cascade of 10 throws and catches of the 5 balls, get all 3 up in the air, execute the 360, then come back around and complete the trick by then qualifying with 10 more throws and catches the original 5-ball cascade. What? Another follow-up question? Hey, I'm not the one who's doing a lousy job explaining himself the first time around. Okay. Chris, do you find there's any disadvantage to being, as you said, the trick guy? So, yeah, I am the kind of guy who likes to work on nailing a trick, and then when I'm done, frankly, many times I will never try that trick again. Of course, the downfall is I post that trick on YouTube, and then I see people in person, and they say, hey, let me see you do that cool 6-ball trick you did. And I probably can't do it again. See, if I only try to work on a trick once, get it, and then move on, I'm going to probably have to ask you to bear with me for 3 or 4 hours worth of practice before I can get that cool 6-ball trick again. So yeah, that's a distinct disadvantage. Other than that, no. You know what? I kind of like my style of practice, and you know, there are so many different tricks that I can work on, and I can do this until I'm 80 years old, and then I'll still be adding new tricks. So, frankly, Only a couple of times a year is there really a disadvantage. The second purpose or goal I might have when I come into practice on any given occasion is to perfect a trick that I've gotten before, or in the same category, perhaps I'm trying to work on or perfect a particular basic pattern that I'm aspiring to. If that's the case, I put those two kind of goals together into one big category, because what I'm going to do is implement the pyramid practice method. The pyramid practice method is perfect for trying to work on any basic pattern, whether that be a fountain pattern or a cascade pattern. It's also, however, extremely useful for working on nearly any kind of trick that is either continuous, say balancing a club while juggling 3 underneath, or perhaps even a side swap, which of course, depending on the side swap, might not only be continuous, but also perhaps symmetrical on both sides. In a nutshell, the pyramid practice method suggests that you start with a base of, say, 10 clean attempts at the simplest level of the trick. So it might be, for example, that you simply place the club on your face and then juggle the cascade in a flash underneath it. But you practice getting that solid 10 times in a row. After that, the next level of the pyramid, you would then try to perhaps put the club back on your face, and this time try to do a little bit longer run of the 3 clubs underneath, say perhaps trying to get 5 or 6 clean catches. But you do this second level only, say, 4 or 5 times. And then finally, in the pyramid practice method, you'll end with 1 attempt at a longer run, still while reasonably under control. And again, if I use the example of the club balance with the juggle underneath, I would put 1 on my face and then try to get maybe as much as, or as many as 8 or 9 catches of those clubs underneath. The third reason I may come out and practice has to do with routines. Now, frankly, I don't do a lot of work with routines. However, on occasion, before perhaps I have a show or in anticipation of a show that I'm going to have to do soon, which doesn't happen very often, by the way, I may need to kind of rework my routine. If I'm going to work on a routine, then what I usually do is I go about it in this particular way. I will first, if I'm trying to design a routine, write down all the tricks that I can do. And I'll put them together in some kind of order so that I think it would look pleasing to an audience. And by that I mean I can write down tricks in some order that will allow the props to move from high throws to maybe real low throws, maybe require me to move from the right to the left-hand side of the stage. I try to alternate tricks that are fast with tricks that are slow. Basically to give some visual interest to whoever might be watching it. And then I try to run through the routine. Usually I find that there will be chunks of that routine that feel pretty smooth. However, of course, there will be places where the segments are smooth, but then there's a transition to go from one piece or one segment to another that's very rocky. And it might be that the transition move to go from one piece to the next is what's causing problems. In which case, then what I will usually do is spend roughly 80% of my time trying to really drill those rough transitions. And the reason I'm doing that is because, of course, if I can make those rough spots feel smooth, then the whole routine will be smooth. Then I'll spend the last 20% of my practice time on that particular day running through the entire routine once more, so that I can both work on that muscle memory and honestly just mental memory of what that particular routine is supposed to look like when I get out there.